Welcome to the Rex Andrews Show. Glad to have you. If you are a new listener, welcome aboard. Glad to have you in the conversation. And you know what? You'll find with me, I'm not too bashful to beg. If you like the show, hit us up with 5 stars. You know, I wear a nice shirt, so I'm just a well-dressed beggar. If you are a return listener, thank you. And please also give us those stars. We'll beg you too. But mostly I want to thank you today because the show has grown so fast around the globe, 32 countries, 6 continents, cracked the top 10 fastest growing. So it's all thanks to you and of course our great listener, our great guests. So thank you very much. And we will do our best to keep bringing you amazing stories. Okay, quick house cleaning, just like normal. If you don't like your current podcast provider, that's okay. There's 23 of them out there that carry our show. So around the world, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. So if you don't like one, jump to another. You can always listen to the podcast on the show website, which is the rexandrewshow.com. You can also, I recommend people going there because the bios and links and connections to every one of our guests is there. So past, current, and future guests, and we always have a great lineup. So go there, read their bios, get their information, click through to their sites and what have you. Plus, we're doing some fun things. Get to see some really cool new sponsors coming up. All right. So today, you know, I always say this, maybe people might get tired of it, but it's just me. I've got way too many interests for just one lifetime. And around the corner is another discovery. So today we have another discovery on the show with us today. A really interesting person and up my alley because I'm a geek, and I mean a tech geek. And for you that are listening, geek is an affectionate word, so don't whack out on me. And us geeks out here, we like that term. But she's done something that's kind of geeky, and she's not a geek, so it's fantastic. We've got she's a mother, she's a realtor. Okay, she had over 25 years of experience in transportation logistics, so knows how to figure out how to get things from one place to other and all the stuff around that. And now she's morphed her career to also include an app creator. In fact, she's not created just one app, but she was the brain trust behind actually 2 applications. So really interesting person, and the geek in me is going to love this because I like that kind of stuff. So I'd like to welcome to the show today, Helen Hudson. Helen, how are you?
Doing fabulous. Thank you, Rex, for having me on your show.
Great. It sounds like you're down there in the Southeast. You know, where are you checking in from for today?
Charleston, South Carolina.
Oh, Charleston's such a beautiful place. Wonderful city. Wonderful city. Okay, so we do the thing, we kind of call it the play along or follow along. So many of our listeners are multitasking. So Helen, if you could real quick, could you give us a website where people can find and get information about your stuff? You know, always it's going to be on our site too, but let's give out your website real quick.
Absolutely. www.safeshowings.com and www.thefacenap.com.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I'm really excited because as I got ready to get you booked, I looked through your stuff like, we got to talk about this one. This is good. Okay. Now on the show, we always go back to the beginning because that's part of the story. I am a consumer of biographies, love to study the human condition. So what I'd like to do, Helen, is I'd like to go back to the beginning, okay? So where were you born? Where did you grow up? Because sometimes that's not always the same. Did you have siblings? You know, did you have siblings that actually survived the wrath of you? What were your parents like? What did they do for a living, income? You know, that kind of stuff. So the influences that provides. What types of activities did you grow up with? You know, sports or dance or theater or interests, or maybe it was shoplifting, and you don't have to list all those stores. So whatever it happens to be, we want to know that because that helps us understand and motivates a lot of people when we see what people have done with great success and where they came from. So now that's a long list. So don't worry, I'll remind you if you forget something. So let's start off, Helen. Where were you born?
I'm a native of South Carolina, a little town called Rock Hill, South Carolina, outside of Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay.
And
why do I know Rock Hill? What is Rock Hill famous for?
Oh, now I was born in the hospital in Rock Hill. We didn't live there. My parents lived in a little town called York, South Carolina,
Okay.
and famous for a university called Winthrop.
Okay.
Winthrop College is there, as far as Rock Hill goes.
Okay. Fantastic. So you're born in Rock Hill. Do you have siblings then?
I do. I have a younger brother and an older sister. Both parents have passed. My dad was in textile sales. He graduated from Clemson University.
Okay.
We went to all the football games as young kids. We traveled we lived in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia because of his career. So
Mhm.
we've moved quite a bit.
Quite a bit.
That's enabled me to meet people and make friends and just enjoy different areas.
Okay, so his career was in textile. What did your mom do? Was she a homemaker? Did she do other work? What was her influence like?
Yeah, she was a homemaker. We're a middle class family, and she supported dad. And then later in life, when we were in school, she started working. She was a secretary at a company and supported the industry for furniture, a couple of
Okay.
companies like that.
Okay. So, for the most part, it sounds like you were a very typical Carolina tiger following middle family, right?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
You know, I can empathize with people who follow the Tigers because I'm a huge Bronco fan, and so orange is just part of my wardrobe. Otherwise, I'm not sure it would be.
Yeah, it's in our blood, right?
That's right. That's right. Staple that orange and purple to you. Okay, so growing up, what other type of interests did you do? Did you play sports? Were you into reading, theater? I mean, what did you do with your spare time growing up?
Well, I enjoyed the outdoors as a young kid, whether it's playing basketball or football in the yard, and just traveling, going on vacations with family, going to Myrtle Beach. That's where my parents like to go. As I grew up older, I enjoyed things like whitewater rafting, things that make your blood rush and give you that excitement. So hiking, camping, those kind of things.
Okay, all right. So you weren't really doing any like organized sports or anything like that growing up?
A little bit of basketball
Or a
because
bit of
I'm tall.
basketball?
I'm 5'11", so I
Oh,
play
okay.
ball.
Yeah, so everybody thinks if you're a little tall that they ought to be throwing you a round ball, huh?
That's right.
Okay, well, I never had that problem because I'm not tall. I'm just a regular sized guy. All right. So how about tell me a little bit about relationship between your siblings? Were you close? Did you have sort of average? Were you the battling WrestleMania every day? What did your
Oh,
relationships with your siblings look like?
I'm very blessed. I'm very close to both. As we were growing up, my sister was a little bit of a bully to the younger two. I'm the middle, but
Hmm.
now we're extremely close. My brother recently retired. He's a dentist and built his dream home outside of Clemson on Lake Kiowee, and he works part-time. My sister still lives in the town that my parents lived, York, South Carolina, and she works in a bank, and we're extremely close. We talk every day and look forward to trips together where we stay in touch.
Okay. Now, are you still a Clemson fan? Do you still follow the football?
Absolutely. It's in
Eh.
my blood. I try to go to games. It's just part of it. I've always been a fan and love Dabo. I think he's one of the best coaches out there.
Yeah, he's an interesting character. We could talk Clemson football all day, but one of my college friends married Dave Treadwell, which was the kicker down from Clemson who kicked for the Broncos for many, many years. And
Okay.
so
Yeah.
I always see them with their posts on social media at the Tiger games and stuff. And so they bleed orange double because of the Tigers, and then he played for the Broncos also.
That's a good match.
Not a bad combo. If you got football in your blood, that's a good thing in my heart. Okay, so you grew up, you got out done with high school. What did you do next?
I went and graduated from Meredith College in Raleigh, North Carolina. That's an all-girls school,
Okay,
and had plans to transfer to Clemson, but ended up loving Raleigh, North Carolina, and all that it had to offer. So now I needed the small school atmosphere. I majored in interior design, minored in art and business, and just loved the culture of a small school.
hmm.
Able to wake up and roll out of bed and go to class and not have to worry about what you look like, and you can focus on your studies. It just made it easy for me.
Okay, so I think you're the first person I've ever actually talked to that went to an all-girls school or all-guys school.
Oh.
What was that like transitioning from, I got a glimpse there of something I picked up, but what was that like transitioning from probably just a traditional high school with both boys and girls, and now you're going off to an all-women's college? What was that like as far as a social environment?
I loved it. I didn't expect to stay there longer than a year, as I mentioned, but it was perfect for me. There's about 2,000 students. Guys could come on campus, but they had to be signed in. We didn't have to worry about men going up and down the hall, so we literally would just roll out of bed and go to class with our glasses and sweats. And, took the pressure off. We could sleep later. You could hit that snooze button and go to
Yeah,
class and not
okay.
worry about what you look like. So that made it fun. But we had NC State in Raleigh plus Chapel Hills nearby. I was a little sister in a fraternity at NC State, so I had that experience. I don't know that they do that anymore, but little sisters are part of the fraternity and
Sure.
social aspect. So that's where I got most of my social activities, was through being a little sister in a fraternity.
Okay. It's really interesting with all the things that, and I don't want to get into politics, all this stuff, but anything anymore that is like exclusive, everybody gets so upset about. It's just, well, you got just an all women's college. Why? And can't I do this? Or all men's or whatever. And it's a crazy world out there today. And, I'm based on seeing you today and kind of just guessing, we're roughly the same age. I'm 55. So it was different back then. People didn't care about that stuff. They didn't get all, bent out of shape about that. It's just, that's how things were.
Exactly.
So
I'm on the same page.
be interesting to see what happens in the future coming up. Okay. So you got done with school. What was your next hop?
Stayed in Raleigh, met my future husband my senior year. He was a year younger, and we ended up moving. I moved. He was still at NC State. I went off. I was an apartment leasing consultant, and I got promoted to be apartment manager. I moved to Sterling, Virginia by myself while we were engaged, and I managed apartments in Sterling, Virginia for about 6 months before we got married.
Okay.
I realized quickly that wasn't where I wanted to live full time. I was drawn back to South Carolina, North Carolina area. Just felt like that was fit more for me.
Now, what does your husband do for a career?
He's in the food industry, always been in the restaurant business, Cisco Foods right now.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah. Extended family and friends have been at Cisco. So yeah, great company.
Yeah.
Okay, so fantastic. So when did you make the hop over to real estate?
I had been in transportation logistics for a while, and probably because I've lost both parents and life seemed short, I've always felt drawn to Charleston, South Carolina. Sure. It was a bucket list when our son went off to college. He's 25 now. He went to UNC Wilmington. I moved to Myrtle Beach.
Okay.
I stayed in the industry I was in. And then when I moved to Charleston a couple of years later, I've always been interested in real estate and just took the step to go ahead and get my license and start a brand new career. And that was 4 years ago this coming summer.
Okay, so it's not like you've been at real estate forever, right? You just relatively new?
Yes.
Okay, so now the stuff that I want to talk about, the key in on, because I'm the geek. What motivated you and gave you the idea to come up with these apps? And let's talk about what was the pivot point, and let's talk about these, because I'm fascinated, because you're doing something that's really interesting. So what was this aha moment?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. 3 years ago this month, in fact, I had been a realtor for a little less than a year, and I was working on a team. And when you're new in the business, you are always meeting strangers. You don't have that repetitive business coming in or referrals in the beginning. So I got an internet lead. The person wanted to see a property. We set up the appointment to meet on a Saturday at 2 o'clock, and I met him at the property. I always arrive early. Drove up. I had a Carolina 1 magnet on my car. But as soon as I came into the neighborhood, I felt nervous, like the hair on the back of my neck stood up. I just didn't feel comfortable. It didn't seem safe. But I parked the car. There wasn't even a driveway. The buyer arrived. I introduced myself. We went into the house. I left the door open. We're taught to give ourselves an out, let the buyer walk in front of us, all those
Sure.
things. He got on his cell phone, and a minute later, a truck drove up and 2 men jumped up on the porch. And I was already startled because I didn't feel safe in the area.
Sure.
And, I was paying attention to him being on the phone. Anyway, when they jumped up on the porch, my heart stopped. I just thought, nobody knows where I am or who I'm with.
Right.
That's the first thing I thought about. And that's what inspired me to look at my own personal safety in an aspect of what can I do differently to not be vulnerable.
Okay, so hang on a second here.
Sure.
We got to go back to this. It's 3-on-1 at
Yes.
this property. What happened?
Luckily, nothing happened. It was people that drove by that saw the for sale sign in the yard.
Okay.
And they saw my magnet on my car as a realtor with Carolina 1. And they really just wanted to they saw the door open. They may have assumed it was an open house, and they
Sure.
just wanted to come see it. But it startled me because I was just caught off guard. It wasn't an open house. I did what I'm supposed to do. I told them, you have to have an appointment. I'm working with a client.
Yep.
Here's my card. I'll be happy to show it to you at another time.
Well, I'm so glad to hear it wasn't some horrible story where you were assaulted or something worse. I mean, goodness gracious, because you hear those. I like to watch documentaries and, these crime show documentaries and stuff. And there's several of them on Netflix or, YouTube and stuff. And there's always somewhere in a mix where a realtor is abducted. I mean, it happens, I wouldn't say all the time, but it is something that happens frequently. So, wow. But you got there and you just had this sense of unease, huh?
Absolutely. And right when I left that situation, I should back up a minute. I've always wanted to find my purpose in life.
Okay.
I've been driven probably for the last 20 years to really find out what am I here for? And I left that situation, and just like you said, I did research. I wanted to find out, what's going on in our industry regarding safety. And that led me to Google searches. And I found and printed the faces of at least 12 realtors that have been brutally murdered and attacked. Yeah. I created a binder, all my Google searches, I printed their stories. And, that motivated me. There actually have been over 200 realtors murdered in the last decade. One was recent in Omaha, Nebraska in November, and it was a man. He owned property. He was a broker, and he was showing rental property, and they found his body underneath the stairwell. He was brutally murdered. A lot of people tell me, Helen, you're a female. I get it. I see why you're passionate about safety. You should be. A third of the victims that have been murdered have been men. So
wow.
It's not just women.
I would have not guessed it'd be that high. I would have not guessed it'd be that high, just because. Yeah. And I'm not trying to stereotype anything, but just because men are rotten and women generally aren't, I would have assumed that a lot of the realtors that have been murdered were women.
No, I think that's why we're vulnerable. We assume that we know a criminal and how they think.
Yeah.
I guarantee you that the 200 realtors that have been murdered in our industry did not go to help someone that day thinking they were murdered and lose their life. They were out to help someone. You can't look at someone nowadays and decide if they're going to be any risk for criminal behavior. We have to assume and be in control by being proactive about our safety.
Fantastic. So you went and did your research. You found that there were over 200 had been murdered. And then you were trying to find your purpose. So it looks like the perfect storm of maybe doing something about it.
Yes. The next step after I was looked at how many people have lost their life, I wanted to find out what the competitive landscape is. I had to know if I'm going to invest money pay for development of an app, is there something already out there that Helen can use that can help me be proactive about my safety? If you
Sure.
remember, I said, hey, nobody knew where I was or who I'm with. Those two things were important for me to solve, and I wanted to also be in control. So I researched, and there's probably 20 apps or more out there that help with safety. And most of them have a way to call for help. Your iPhone or your Android can do that. You can enter emergency contacts and
Sure.
it does that. But what the key link or the piece that was missing for me is being in control, telling the stranger, the buyer, the person you've never met, that you will be caught, that you're in control of your safety was what I could not find. The tools that I found were reactive, not proactive.
Right. Okay. So, did you know somebody in app development, or did you just have to go figure out how to find somebody to do this? Putting this all together?
Like most of my decisions, whether it's good or not so good, I rely on referrals, just how I
Okay.
found you. I talk to people that I respect, and they
Sure.
lead me to the right people. The first company I worked with is local here in Charleston, Code and
Mm-hmm.
Trust. And Code and Trust did the development of, as you know, because you're a technical person, we started with a native app. I
Sure.
didn't know what the difference was, but we
Yep.
started native. I'm the average age of a realtor, which is 56. And I learned a lot. We developed the first version as a web app almost 3 years ago, this past January.
Okay.
It took from about September to January to create the web version of Safe Showings.
Okay. Fantastic. So, are you publishing it in the stores now? Or is it mostly just a web app, or what are you doing as far as distribution for it?
Oh, after that experience, I was approached by a company called Kiwi Tech in India, and I used them to develop the native app. It
Okay.
took a lot longer than I thought. I'll write a book about that one day. But we released the native app in June, right during the pandemic.
Oh,
I
wow.
spent about 2 years traveling, the first 2 years with awareness and making people aware of our product, being on local news and radio, and going to trade shows and conventions in our industry and having a booth and talking about the app. And then we had the pandemic, it changed. We had to pivot, and we created the native app and began approaching the state and local associations with proposals and doing demos virtually.
Okay. Wow. So, how was it for you being a non-app technical person going through the whole requirements definition? Most people don't realize if you're going to build an application, it's not much different than building a house. You got to have all the features and functions you want, and it has to be in a doc.
It was nerve-wracking and exciting, if that makes any sense. The exciting part is I'm the vision behind it, and they did listen. And if I could replay that day where I had that fear, that situation that made me come up with the idea, what our app does is when you drive up to a property, before I get out of the car, I press a button that says start showing.
Okay.
So the timer starts. We preset it for 45 minutes.
Okay.
It says, who are you meeting with? And you know who you're meeting with because you set the appointment. And I auto-populate the contact from my phone. I just auto-fill that. Then I get out of the car and I say, hey, Rex, it's so nice to meet you. I'm so glad to see you. I care about your safety, my safety, and the homeowner's safety. Or
Yeah.
a person can use their own verbiage. But I said, I need to get an image of your face. And I take a picture of your face. That one step is what makes our app unique.
Yeah.
It tells a person that you're in control before you go in the home, because 99% of the murders I've read about happen behind the closed door.
Yeah.
And I haven't had pushback because of the world we live in. It's expected to show a license almost everywhere you go now.
Yeah. Gosh,
But
and imagine there's people in this world that don't think you need one to vote. That's kind of crazy.
isn't it?
Well, that's great. So you were I like that approach because you're basically, like you said, it's not reactive, it's almost preventive. So you're you're logging that your showing just started. So I understand how you do that technically. You grab the picture, you insert that into the record. And so now you're basically in a situation that would diffuse, I would think, just about everybody's inclination to think, well, if I'm going to do something stupid, I can't do this because she's got a picture of me, you know?
Exactly. There's a criminal justice quote that says that the number one fear a criminal has is not a punishment for their crime, it's getting caught.
It's getting caught.
And
Yeah.
when we take that picture, Rex, if someone actually attacks me before I get the picture or after I get the picture and destroys my phone, that image and all that data goes to our cyber secure cloud.
Sure.
So my 3 emergency contacts are going to get a link that says where I am, the GPS location,
Yep.
who I'm with, because I auto-populated that, and an image of a face if that's what I took a picture of.
Now, is it as granular as giving somebody a GPS coordinates? So is it giving you longitude, latitude, where you're standing? Is that the general address? Tell me a little bit about that. It's address.
It's address based, and they'll get a link that they click on and they see exactly where you are. You know how that works, though. Sometimes things can be off by a hair.
Yeah.
Yes, coordinates, but it's pure. I test it all the time. It's pretty accurate. We want it to be accurate.
I worked with a company that was a transportation company up in Canada, and they were, well, their business model is that they are, it's load management and stuff. And they were, one of their biggest clients was in the energy industry. So people would be dropping pipe and well equipment and, things, and they would be out in the middle of nowhere where there was no address. Okay. So, County Road 7, 4 miles up here. And so what was cool about the app that we developed for that was just to be able to pinpoint. So you would just, take a pinpoint drop, and then it would give you the longitude, latitude, and we would guarantee it down to a 3-foot diameter. So, wherever they were standing when they took that pinpoint. But yeah, address is probably enough in most cases where you're at because, you're not out dropping pipes off in the middle of a Canadian wheat field. So,
right.
Okay. Yeah. So I understand that. That's cool. So how was it like working with overseas developers?
It was a challenge. The time difference and the language barrier. I was born with a hearing loss. I'm almost deaf in one ear, and I don't know if it's partially due to that or just the language barrier, but it was a struggle. Hindsight, I won't ever do that again. I will finish that story by telling, if it's okay.
Sure.
A year ago, it'll be 2 years ago in May, I was at my first conference in real estate, the annual conference in DC, and I met my business partner just randomly. He looks like Duck Dynasty. He's standing with 2 cups of coffee at the top of the stairs, and I walk in, and he said, "Who are you?" And I said, "Is he talking to me?" He's kind of intimidating. And I said, "Why?" He said, "I saw you 3 times. Who are you?" And I told him who I was. I was there to observe. I'm created in the app. And he said, "I want to talk to you." And I live in Charleston. Long story short, he's my business partner. And his background is in cybersecurity.
Oh, nice.
That launches missiles. And he's a very successful businessman, has a lot of different things. I'm in his building right now. He created a development company here in the same building. So if I need to pivot and change anything about my app, I walk down the hall. But one of the things he said to me, he said, "Helen, okay, tell me what it does." And we met after that day when we got back to Charleston. But he said, and I explained at the time when it was a web app, I was passionate about getting an image of a driver's license.
Yeah.
Said, why are you doing that? He said, "You can't fake a face, and it takes away all that uncomfortable scenario of having to reach in a purse or go back to the car to get it."
Sure.
You can't fake a face, and with artificial intelligence, it's really what the authorities would like to have. So that's why we are passionate about getting an image of a face.
Oh, facial recognition has advanced so much in the last 10 years. It's crazy.
It has.
And even in the last 5 years, I mean, you look at what the Chinese are doing, or tracking all their people and with it. And I find that to be very, very interesting, because when you are in a mono race like they are in China, there's not a whole lot of variations to color of hair, color of eyes, color of eyebrows, things that would be differentiating characteristics. So it's amazing technology. I think it's really neat stuff. It's really neat stuff.
Yeah.
Well,
And
fantastic.
who looks like their driver's license
Oh
anymore?
no, who does? Yeah, who does? I still have hair on mine. So
We all change.
we all changed and stuff. Well, that's great. So, so you got that one up and launched, and that's going pretty good. Then it's getting that out into distribution and getting people to adapt it.
Yes, it takes time, as you know,
Yep.
your experience, but we've got over 500,000 realtors with access to our enterprise pricing. We're looking for more. There's, over 2 million that are either realtors or real estate professionals. So there's a lot of room for growth.
Yep. That's great. Okay. Now you also have another app. Let's talk about that one real quick.
I knew in the very beginning when I had the vision for safe showings that this could be a tool that could be used in other applications for everyone.
Sure.
And I pivoted on names, just if you're curious, but I came up with the face snap, or now we call it, the app itself is called Face Snap, because that's what you're doing. You're taking a snap, a picture, safety in a snap,
Yep.
picture of the face. So for Uber rides, Lyft, taxis, both ways, the driver, if I'm driving for Uber and I'm picking up people in my car late at night or anytime, if it it needs to be a safety habit.
Yeah.
Before they get in, I'll take a picture of their face. And the rider might do the same of the driver.
Sure.
It works for dating sites, all the dating sites out there, for home health nurses, for Marketplace, Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist.
Yeah.
There have been murders in all those scenarios, as
Yep.
we all know, and our world is not getting safer. I like to talk to people about proactive versus reactive.
Yeah.
If I had a gun that day and
Yeah.
I'm standing on the porch with 3 men, they don't know I have it. That's reactive for me to reach in my purse and try to cock a gun, whatever you do. I don't
Yeah.
know. It's reactive. If I had pepper spray or mace, it's reactive. The person doesn't know I have it. But when you are proactive and you tell someone, hey, I care about my safety, I need an image of your face before you meet with a stranger, it just lets them know that you're not vulnerable, and it changes the game.
Well, there are so many applications of that. I'm sitting here as a technologist running around in my head because there's so many things where you need to verify where we've met somebody. And the whole Craigslist and the Facebook marketplaces and people going to those things to be safe. I know people who make their entire income selling stuff on Craigslist and Facebook marketplace, and it becomes very very scary. I'll tell you a really quick story when you brought this up. Back in my computer consulting, Oracle database consulting years, we did a project for the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. Okay, so Los Angeles County is a huge jurisdiction. Back in the day, I don't even know what it would be now, but their budget was bigger than some states' budgets. The LA County Sheriff's Department was bigger than some state budgets. And when we were doing work, we just got to know with these guys. We were doing work with them. We got to learn all their slogans and stuff. So one of the slogans at the time, I don't know if it's still the same, for the LA County Sheriff's Department was, have gun, will travel. Okay. So I just thought that was funny, have gun, will travel, right? And so I tell my kids, hey, have gun, will travel. I'll come pick you up. So fast forward into, I'm one of these guys that always looking for a deal. So my oldest daughter needed a calculator for, scientific calculator. I go to the store and they're like $80 to $100. I'm like, well, why won't buy one brand new? Because these things get used for like a year and then, people are done with them. So I find the scientific calculator that I'm looking for, contact the person, and got them on the phone. And we made arrangements where to meet. And of course, it was a public place. It was a parking lot at a Walmart or a mall or something. I don't even remember that specific. And I said, okay, well, have gun, will travel. I'll see you. Meet you there.
Oh.
The guy refused to meet me because he was afraid, because I had said, have gun, will travel, that I was showing up with a gun and stuff. And so, and this was at least 10, 12 years ago. So this wasn't even the crazy culture that we're in now, where we see these things. So I can see that almost any type of interaction, any type of delivery, anytime we're meeting up with somebody, that's a great idea to be able to capture a face, pinpoint where you're at, and be able to make it so people can find someone, or do the preventive thing. I like that idea of, hey, it will probably tone it down of, like you said, people don't want to get caught, because most criminals don't even ever think about consequences.
No.
They just don't want to get caught doing what they're doing.
Right.
So that's
And
fantastic.
there is an emergency button for both the apps, and on the menu side, if you want to activate help quicker, it's 10 seconds. It's 10 seconds. It'll call 911 and send the link to all 3 contacts. I do want to point out that we just announced Face Snap is free. That's big.
Wow.
Face Snap is free. I really want people to use it and get downloads. And that was just released in November. It was $2.99 or $29.99 per year. But we decided you shouldn't have to pay for it. We want people to use it.
Okay.
In the world we're in, especially as things start opening up and people are doing more travel and meeting with people, I think that it's something that will help make our world safer.
Well, that's awesome. You must have got some business things lined up to make that free. That is awesome, because what a great idea for applications. So we were talking off air before we got on air. Back in one of my businesses, previous businesses, a partner and I had an application development firm. So we did exactly what, you had an idea, we built it for you. We were just general contractors for applications. And in a 7-year period, and this was earlier on in apps, where we did a little over 1,100 mobile applications. So we were building apps all over the place. And they were not only just native apps, but they were web apps. I mean, if you needed an app and you needed something to hit you with push notifications, we were your guys. And I'll tell you, there were some brilliant ones that came along, and then there were some dumb ones. But we didn't make judgment. We built the dumb ones with just as much fever as we built the brilliant ones. So I would have to say both of yours are brilliant. Those are great applications.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So what's next? You got another one up your sleeve?
Oh, I'm always going to keep my mind open, but I'm focused on these 2 right now. I think that's going to be for a while, but I've always had that entrepreneurial spirit of looking for ideas or ways to make things better. But I never knew it would be about safety. I thought it would be a product of some sort. Design or something like that. But
well, that's really neat. That's really neat. And it's neat that you had the fortitude and the courage to step forward and do it. Because a lot of people have ideas, but they never take the time and the courage to step forward and do it. Because that's half the battle. It's more than half the battle.
It is. It's a challenge, but I've got a lot of good people around me, and that keeps me going. And my business partners are very supportive as well.
So looking back, what would you have done different? Just sort of the rear view mirror look.
Yes, I would have trusted my gut to make it native first. Based on my own, using me as an example, I don't know a lot about technology, but I know how to download an app.
Yeah.
But I learned that, not to go native with this type of product because of the audience.
Yeah.
That people my age don't understand how to forward something to their phone. So I feel like I wasted a year.
Yeah. And also too, saving something to a web home screen isn't the easiest thing for a lot of people. And yeah, there's a lot of advantages of web apps. And for those listening that don't understand the difference, a web app is essentially a website that acts like an app. And so it has push notifications and those things, but you don't download those from the app stores. Okay. So to get one of those, somebody has to send you a link, and you have to download it, and you have to save it to your phone and your home screen. And you can still use it like an app, but it's not quite as easy or foolproof as a native app. So, but yeah, I can see why that would be. So yeah, you burnt a year in experience on that, but you'll be fine.
Money.
And money. Yeah. Money.
And then my second learning curve was using a company in India. Nothing against place, but the language barrier was very difficult. And this particular situation, I don't think they listened well to what I said. Basically, I had the native app. I'm sorry, the web app, and I wanted them to make it
Native, yeah.
and they redesigned it and spent a lot of time, wasted a lot of time. Those frustrations where you're like, how can I be more clear? I'm telling you exactly what I want.
Well, I have done more than 20 years worth of dealing with offsite, overseas developers. And it's not as cut and dry as anybody ever thinks. Even though they can speak the same language, they don't understand the cultures, and there's too many of those things in there. And then one thing early on, I don't know if it's still the same, but what I have experienced is there's just something about the culture from India, from the way they do development, that they're not the best graphic designers and user interface people. They're, coding skills, database, that kind of stuff, fabulous, fast, they're quick and stuff. But if you want a button over here, they have a hard time with that sometimes. And yeah, user interface things, it's just so a lot of times when I was in heavy, big software, we would hire Indian firms to do the back-end coding. And then we would find somebody in the United States or Canada to actually finish the user interface and the GUIs and stuff, just because the guys on the back end, it was just, it was like speaking Chinese to them. They just didn't get it. So, but there are a lot of great companies out there, and they, the one thing that's really nice about when we use offshore resources like that, we're helping those countries grow, and their people and make good incomes and do those things in their environments. But it's at rates that make things very affordable for us. So I think there's a proper place for all of it.
Right. I think if I could do it over again, I would talk to references of companies before I decide to do business with them, talk to their existing clients that they've built products for,
Sure.
Interview 2 or 3 of them just to get their feedback. And I know that doesn't always work because they might give you their best clients, but
sure,
I should have spent more time on that on the first 2 developers I worked with.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I appreciate you've been very generous with your time. I'm excited for your apps. I'm going to go download and tell everybody about FaceSnap. We'll get the word out on that baby. And also, I have a lot of friends in real estate, so I will talk to them about safe showing. So the last question I always ask my listeners, and if anybody's listened, they know what's coming. In this world, we have this thing we call a bucket list, all the things I want to do before, I die and all that great stuff. Well, there's always an opposite of everything in the universe. So there's an opposite list out there, things you don't want to do. So that list rhymes with bucket, starts with an F, but I'm not going to say it. Okay. So what might be on Helen's F it list? I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that, or I have no interest in it.
I don't know that this would ever be on a list, but jumping in a pile of snakes. I don't know.
It was the thing that you came out with. So you're not going to do the Indiana Jones drop down into the den of snakes. Okay.
Not anywhere dark and creepy.
and no snakes. Okay. That's a great one. That's the first one anybody's come up with. I've had lots of not jumping out of airplanes or eating this or that, or, meeting this or that, but no, jumping into a pile of snakes. I'm right there with you. All right, Helen, thank you for your time. It's been great to have you on, and we'll get you back on another appearance coming up just to see how things are going with both the apps. And if you could, one last time, could you give out your website so people can find you?
Absolutely. It's www.safeshowings.com for real estate app, and www.thefacesnap.com for our FaceSnap app.
Fantastic. Thank you. So thanks for coming on. And like I said, we'll look forward to getting you back in the future. So, all righty. Okay. Well, folks, that's it. We're going to call it a wrap for this episode. Don't forget to stop by the show website, rexandrewshow.com. You can get the links to her stuff here today and any of our other guests, and plus all the fun stuff that we're doing. So until next time, like I say every time, be safe, be bold, and make it a great day.